Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 257. In this show where I review all the comics I read this week. I go worst pick of the week to best pick of the week and everything in between, so let's get started. Before I start talking about the comics though, there's only one more day left of the Like Father Like Daughter trade campaign. We're giving a lot of stuff away with our stretch goals and everything, so definitely go check that out. And again, one more day left, link in the description below. But let's start talking about the books for this week. So I actually had a pretty hefty week, 21 books, and number 21 for me was Titans issue 25. Debating to drop this book or move digitally with this book because it just hasn't been the same since they changed the team. I don't really care for their chemistry, and also this being a bigger issue, I just didn't care about what they were doing. I didn't really like the issue much. Artwork is okay. I think the regular artist is a little stiff, and we do get another artist here, which, you know, meets the style pretty well of the first artist, but just not feeling this book or really seeing the direction of this book. So, giving this one 2 stars. We'll see if this one stays on my pull list or not. Moving on to number 20, which is Catwoman, issue 3. A book I've been seriously disappointed with because I really like Joelle Jones, and I felt this book had an opportunity to have a really good direction with obviously post-Batman issue 50 storyline, but they focused more on the villain, who I do not care about. The whole skincare type villain. Not really skincare, but her like trying to live longer, but I didn't really care for her story. I do like the art a lot, but then they changed the art in the middle where she's trying to tell her whole life story, which again, just didn't care for that exposition. So I wanted more Selena. There wasn't a lot of Selena in this issue. And another book, I just don't know what direction they're going in, and it's weird to say that because I felt like this book had a built-in direction post-Batman issue 50, like I said. So, giving this one 2 stars. Another one, we'll see how long that stays in my pull list for. I do want to at least follow through with this story arc and then see where they're going after this one. Alright, moving on to number 19, which is Birthright, issue 31, and this is the return of the series, and it's kind of a filler issue, or exposition filler issue, where we get to learn about one of the other characters, not really the family members, and learn her story. And for someone who's not as hardcore of a Birthright fan, I wanted to go back to the family, because it's been so long since we've seen them because of the hiatus. I wanted to see their story, and I didn't care as much about the world building for this one. And again, I think it just depends what type of fan you are. I'm not a hardcore fantasy fan. I read this book because of the family dynamic, so I really think it depends why you're reading this book, if you'll enjoy it or not. So I'm giving that 2 stars, and this is number 19. And the artwork is solid throughout the series, but I think it's a little blurry at times, and I saw that a lot with this issue. Alright, moving on to number 18, which is Infinity Wars, issue 3. This was a fun issue, but also felt like one of those books where it's like, you should buy all these miniseries we're trying to sell you. Because it's Gamora, you know, practicing her abilities with the Infinity Stones, and she's like, look at this guy, this reality of Captain America, this reality of Wolverine. Go check out this miniseries. So, again, it's a cool issue to see how the realities change, but I also felt like I was being sold books too, and I don't like that with the events. So, and also I'm not a huge fan of the coloring for this book. I do feel like it's a bit damp, but that's usually what we get with Deodato. Yeah, Deodato's artwork, the colorist that usually works with him, or I guess maybe he colors the book. Let me see. I think it's a different colorist. Yeah, it's a colorist that usually works with him's damper coloring for some reason. But Gamora's fun. She's a fun character, and if you like her, I think you'll enjoy this issue more. But yeah, it's just kind of that middle type issue where we're seeing where these miniseries go. So Infinity Wars for me gets 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 17. Disappointed to see this low, but it's just a story arc, honestly, and that is Sideways, issue 8. I really like this book. I think it's a very under-the-radar book. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but it's a lot of fun, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan, because it has that similar vibe to it. But with this story arc, I don't like that he's teaming up with these mystical characters. It doesn't really fit his character. And then you're not really focusing on the main plot that's going on, which is his mother, losing his mother. And I felt like those beats were skipped here just to have, oh, look at these special guest characters for 2 issues. I think it's going to be 2 issues. So it just wasn't the stuff I usually like about Sideways being presented here, and it feels like a total filler arc, and I don't really know why it's here right now. So Sideways issue 8 gets 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 16. Moth and Whisper, issue 1. A book I was actually looking forward to. I like the concept of these 2 thieves actually being the parents of our main character. But we don't really get to know much about our main character in this issue. Lots of exposition about Moth and Whisper and how people view them. And then by the end of the issue, it's like, oh yeah, and I am their child. And it just didn't make me invested in this overall story. It was like, alright, cool concept, but why should I care? And that's kind of what was hard for me to want to pick up the next issue. Also not a huge fan of the art style, kind of cartoonier style here. Didn't really love it. So I did like the coloring though. I thought the coloring was pretty cool and espionage-esque. Like this page was kind of cool. Cartoony version of what we'd see like in an espionage film. So I like that. Kind of like the James Bond cartoon thing going on. So that was cool. So yeah, Moth and Whisper issue 1 gets 2.5 stars. And probably won't get issue 2 of that one. Moving on to number 15. Which is Frozen, Breaking Boundaries, issue 2/part 2. I've been getting a lot of these Disney Dark Horse books because I love Disney, so why not? And I like Frozen, and I've seen with Frozen a lot, they don't know what to do after the movie. The stories aren't as good. And I think Breaking Boundaries is kind of hitting that same wall. It's trying to introduce this new character, and Elsa's not even in the issue at all, which was really surprising. I want to see more of the powers. You know, you're in a comic book. I want to see more of Elsa's powers. But instead, it's just like Anna and this girl doing odd jobs and learning more about the village, which is cool to learn more about the village, but I want more powers. That's why I'm reading Frozen, the comic book. Also, I feel like there's a lot of dialogue. I mean, usually I wouldn't complain about that, but with kids' books, and especially if a kid is reading this, they might get bored reading it because there's just so much being thrown at you. So that was another thing I kind of recognized with this one. I like the art style overall, though. It's less cartoony than I expected for a Frozen book, but it's bright and friendly, and that's exactly what you do want with a Disney book. And I kind of like that's a little different than what you would expect. So, Frozen gets 2.5 stars, though. I'll continue to pick it up, but it's not exactly where I want it to be yet. Alright, moving on to number 14. Which is Volition, issue 2. This is an Aftershock book, and the artwork is gorgeous for this one. I do want to learn a little bit more about this main character, though. It was a lot of jumping in this one, so, especially in the beginning, because we kind of see, not different realities, but we get to see, you know, different things that she's seeing, and that's kind of part of the mystery. But I want to learn more about this main character, and I think so far they've done a really good job at building the world here, but I want to care more about why she's doing these things. But the artwork is super gorgeous here. Facial expressions are great. It feels a lot like kind of a print in each panel. That's kind of how much detail, a digital print. So I really enjoyed that aspect. So overall, I'm going to give Volition issue 2 3 stars. Moving on to number 13, which is Superman issue 3. I like this one more than I expected. When I was flipping through it, I was like, oh, the villain, Zar, whatever his name is, Rongo Zar, someone with a czar. I don't like him. He's kind of boring to me so far. But I really liked how the Justice League was reacting to being in the Phantom Zone and the different atmosphere going on. So that I really enjoyed, which is why this is higher. Also, Reyes' artwork is just drop dead gorgeous on every page. I also like seeing, what's her face? Livewire. I thought that was kind of a cool villain to see show up here. So there's definitely a lot of fun moments. A page I loved was, you know, obviously there's havoc going on and people are raiding the stores, and then Superman comes in and says, don't do it, and they're like, oh man, why do you have to ruin our fun? I want to find the page. It's hysterical. And that's the Bendis moments I love, those small moments. Here it is. I thought that was a great page. So overall, I give it 3.5 stars. I'm still not blown away by this overall story arc, and again, the villain I could care less about, but the small moments I really enjoyed with this one. So giving that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 12, which is Supergirl, issue 22. Another one that kind of deals with that Zara character, so that brings it down. But I like Supergirl's attitude a little bit more in this book than we've been getting. Artwork is okay. I do feel like there could be a little bit more detail, but I think we get the tone pretty well here, and I think that Supergirl's a bit more fun in this storyline. And the coloring's really bright. That really helps that as well. The whole axe story, I'm like, oh god, Supergirl and this axe. I don't need her having Zara's axe. I don't care about that. But I do like the kind of bigger mystery of her finding out what happened to Krypton connected to him. So that's going to be cool. And I like her teaming up with the Green Lanterns. I thought that was fun, and just kind of making her more connected to the DC Universe, which we haven't seen in a while. She's done like a lot of her own storylines. Although she was connected to the Green Lantern. She was a Red Lantern for a while, so... They didn't reference that here, though, thank God. But yeah, it's just a middle ground book for me. It's not wowing me, but I also don't hate it by any means. It's just kind of in the middle, and enjoying the ride for the most part, I guess. But I still want to be wowed with the Supergirl books. I do love Supergirl. So yeah, giving that 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 11. Archie, 1941, issue 1. Very torn on this book, actually. I'm a huge fan of Waid's run of Archie, and that's how I got into Archie comics. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, who's reading Archie comics right now. But I love the idea of Archie being drafted. I think that's really interesting. And also, having a storyline that was with the launch of Archie comics is really cool. But I feel like it kind of falls in a trap of what the 1940 comics failed in, especially with Betty and Veronica. You see the thing that I feel that the modern comics, especially Waid's run, did well is showing a friendship there, and showing that these are individual characters outside of a relationship with Archie. And then they just kind of revert back. And I guess my problem with that is because this is Waid's last Archie story. So it's kind of weird to fall on that note, to have Betty just being like, Archie, what are you doing? Archie, Archie, Archie. It just like kind of goes back to that. It's like, yes, it's a kind of cool nostalgic thing, but I don't want to see Betty that way. So I hope they do something more with those characters, because I think Archie is really good and Jughead's Jughead, but Veronica and Betty kind of got the short end of the stick with this story. And I hope they could really... curve their characters more than just the love interest with this one. But I do like the whole idea of Archie being drafted and that being in the back of his head. It's not really announced in this book, but if you know history and you follow the clues, like that's what's going on. And I'm interested to see how Waid will tackle that. And that's why I am hooked to definitely see where this goes. But I don't know if this is the best one to... go with. This is Waid's last Archie story. So that's where I'm like torn on with this book. And the artwork is good. I very classic. I like the styles that's going on. And I think the writing and artwork does a really good job at embracing the 40s. So I enjoyed that aspect. And I feel this more simplified artwork works for this this series compared to the Archie modern series that we were getting. Because Fitzpatrick, actually did the coloring for this. The line art is by Peter Cross, so this is a different artist. But it's very similar to Mock's artwork, who's doing Archie before that. It reminded me of that. So, yeah, giving that 3.5 stars, though. Moving on to number 10, which is Guncats, issue 2. It doesn't really progress the story much, which I was a little disappointed with, but I still really like these characters. I'm enjoying these two girls, being bounty hunters, and that's just fun. For me, again, it's a little less than issue 1. I don't think there was as much world building or plot progression, but I still like these character dynamics, so... giving that 3.5 stars. Also really solid artwork there, too. Very clean artwork for that one. Especially with like facial expressions and action. Moving on to number 9, which is Detective Comics, issue 988. It's a very generic Batman story, but if you're looking for classic Batman, you get it here. And for me, it went over the line just enough that it was entertaining and wasn't fully generic. Because you got, Firefly, who's a classic Batman/Batgirl villain, so it's kind of cool that Barbara was referenced there. And you get to see 2 different versions of them, so what mystery is going on there. And Bruce trying to figure out just a regular murder, and obviously he's gonna be connected to other stuff. I didn't really like the Selena shout-out, just because the other Batman series is dealing with that so much. I just wanted this series to be separate, and it's done a good job with that. So going back to that, I didn't really like that. And also, I don't know if this needs to just be a Bruce book. I really liked it being a Bat Family book, and I think that's where Detective will succeed. So I also don't know how to feel just like, here's Bruce. It's like, alright, but we always get Bruce. Let's see someone else interact with Bruce. Let's see something different with this book. So that's what I'm saying. It kind of felt a little generic, but it's still really entertaining. And the artwork was really good. I really like it. I like these old pages. Like, I love this more papery feel, thicker pages that really helps this feel more nostalgic and classic. Some beautiful coloring as well here too, which really put this book over the edge for me. So yeah, Detective Comics issue 988 gets 3.5 stars. Also great Mark Brooks cover for that one. Okay, moving on to number 8, which is The Flash, issue 54. And even though this is also kind of a filler story, it was an entertaining filler story, especially if you like the Rogues. You get to see, what we love about the Rogues is that they're not completely villains, and you get to see that here. They have more dimensions to them. So if you miss the Rogues, they're here, and they do a good job, especially Trickster. But the whole Barry Allen getting muscles thing was just like, oh, this kind of feels like a Silver Age DC comic book. But I like the more serious tones that it does take, especially by the end with Barry's connection to Captain Cold, or Citizen Cold, I think he's called here. I might be confusing that with the television show, but the other version of Cold from the other universe, and also Iris. I love the Iris Barry scenes. I think that's where the series is at its best, and I like that they're both hiding something from each other, so that's been good. And the artwork is so good for this book. I hope this is the artist that stays. Just some of the best artwork from DC, probably from both big two, is this. I love the inking, the coloring. It's very deep coloring and deep inking here. Really like it. So, giving that 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 7, I believe. Yes, number 7 is Miss Marvel, issue 34. Lower than I want it to be, but it's this kind of filler, weird arc where Bruno and Kamala are figuring out more about her powers and everything's going wrong. Miss Marvel's fighting the Shocker and can't even defeat him. But I like the little tidbits added here. Bruno figuring out where Kamala's powers come from, which I believe should have been revealed earlier to make this arc shorter. Yeah, her being connected to time was really interesting. And I love this page of seeing all the different versions of Kamala and Bruno saying, oh my god, I might end up with Kamala. That's so cool. So I like those little moments a lot. And then also, if you're an A-Force fan, we got to see Singularity. That was cool. I like her character, and G. Willow Wilson created that character, so it's cool to see her. Love the artwork too, especially because this was more a comedic issue and a little less emotional. That was cool. I think that Nico Leon does a good job at hitting those comedic moments, and also emotional moments too, but especially the comedic moments here. Yeah, so I enjoyed it, but I still feel like it is a bit of a filler issue, and I do feel like, yes, it's a fun filler story, but it shouldn't be this many issues. So I think it's another issue after this. It's just like so many issues of Shocker. Yeah, another Shocker issue next issue. That's a lot for Shocker. So yeah, given that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is, let's get there, hold on. Number 6 is X-23, issue 4. Really solid issue. I've been really enjoying X-23, and I love the collaboration between Tamaki and Cable. I think they're really great, and some great sequences here. I mean, the coloring is great too, where we get to see Gabby switching bodies and things going on with the Cuckoos. But my favorite scene probably being from Laura, where she, gets hurt and you see all her bones and she's like, alright, my face is coming back, my skin's coming back, and then she's like, claws, and she doesn't have to say claws, but we know it. We know it's coming. So that's cool. And I do like the little twist here. Well, also another page I like. Another page I really enjoyed was the Brady Bunch. Oh my god. Very close to being in my top 5 panels. Didn't make it this week, but that was so good. And you hear the theme song in your head, and it was so perfect. And it needed some levity because Gabby was pretty much a villain in this issue. So you still have that Gabby levity, even though she wasn't Gabby in this issue. So, but yeah, I like the Cuckoos here a lot. I enjoy that they're not all on the same page, and it looks like there's some relationships are stronger than others, and one of the Cuckoos is in Laura's head, and she's like, alright, well, I'll save your sister if you save mine. So we'll see how she ends up saving Gabby, who's right now one of the Cuckoos. So it does get a little confusing if you don't know all the Cuckoos. For me, I'm not a hardcore Cuckoos fan, I just know of them. I don't know their individual names. So it gets a little confusing which one's which, but I still really like that twist, and I'm excited to see where that goes. So X-23 issue 4 gets 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is the Fantastic Four issue 2, and we actually get to see the point of view of the other family, the other side of the family, which is Sue, Valeria, Franklin, and Reed, where Reed has a weird beard now. Some places it worked, some places it didn't. But like one scene he had like a crafted beard. Let me see if I can find it. Like here, crafted beard. Very hipstery beard going on. But yeah, I really like how much Franklin and Valeria have grown up. That's the aspect I really liked about this issue. You know, Valeria is kind of going into, I guess, her first relationship, kind of, depending on if the guy survives or not. But we get to see some romance between them, and Franklin saying, that's my sister, and him being totally overprotective, which I loved. But it's also, you know, dealing with the scientific aspect of Franklin building these universes, and then a villain destroys them. And that connects to them having to go back to Earth. So I really love, and I love Sue and Reed just having a fun time saying this is our family and we're living our best lives here, and then of course they have to go back to Earth, which I didn't love the reasoning why. I wish they kind of connected that a little better, but I enjoyed seeing kind of a peek of what they've been doing. I do feel like it's still like, oh my god, I want the Fantastic Four already, but we do get them by the end, and I love that it's the extended Fantastic Four, so it's everyone who's been on the team, so I really enjoyed that, and I look forward to see how that team up goes in the next issue. And then Sarah Pacelli's artwork, solid. I don't think it's her best work. I do feel like there's times where there could be a little bit more detail, but overall I like her artwork a lot, and I'm gonna give this 4 stars. Really been liking this series and looking forward to seeing where it keeps going, and one of the best Fantastic Four series so far in a while, because I haven't loved the Fantastic Four in a while, so it's cool to get excited for the book again. Number 4 is Nancy Drew, issue 4. I believe this book has been in my top 5 every single time it's come out. I just love Thompson's voice for this book, and I love the artwork. It's just the perfect tone of modern, cartoony. It works, and the facial expressions are really good. I love the lettering in this, where Betsy was telling her whole story, and they made the lettering that it didn't fit in the balloon, so I thought that was cool. So, you know, there's a lot of cool attention to detail, a lot of good character stuff in this book, and we get to see a good mystery of learning more about these murders and more people being kidnapped, and it's just really good, good detective story. And then a good cliffhanger where Betsy gets kidnapped, so the team's gonna have to save her, hopefully. I'm sure they'll save her. And then I love the dynamic. I just love this crew already. It's only 4 issues, but the way they bounce off each other is what makes this book. Even more than the mystery, in my opinion. So, Nancy Drew, issue 4, gets a solid 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Runaways, issue 13. It's lower than I want it to be, but it was a change in artwork, and it was a little jarring because it's very different from Chris's style, and more similar to Runaways, like Volume 3. I believe it was Volume 3. That, and I believe Volume 4 as well, that was a little bit more abstract. So it's not particularly my style, but I really like the story here, especially the dynamic between Alex and Nico, where Alex directly takes the leadership role from her. And Nico's like, wait, this is my family, stop doing that. And the team doesn't even realize they're like listening to him. They're like, I'm not going to listen to you, Alex, but yeah, I'm going to do what you say. So that was a lot of fun. And, you know, Nico dealing with her abilities in this issue as well, that was really good. And then also connecting to the Pride a little bit more in a new light. So it looks like to save the world, the Runaways might have to maybe be the new Pride. We'll have to see. So that was a really interesting twist. So I enjoyed that, and just the connection to old stories was really cool, especially with Alex coming into this story. So there's cool dynamics here. I thought it was a solid issue, but again, the artwork wasn't particularly my style. So, and I believe the artist is going to be on the next issue, and then Chris comes back with issue 15. And also, the solicits were, I guess, wrong for this issue, because it's supposed to be like Carolina fighting the paparazzi, and you even get to see that with the cover, and that does not happen in the issues. I don't know what happened in between there, but it happens sometimes. Hopefully we get that story at some point, because I was looking forward to that, but it didn't happen in this issue. So, given that 4 stars, though, that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 5. I just had a blast with this issue. There's so many moments I enjoyed. I really like the MJ Peter stuff. Just I love their relationship, and that Peter goes to her to ask for advice, and you know, this is the strongest we've seen of their relationship. But the humor in this issue, man, I really like the humor, especially the Spider-Man Without Responsibility, where he doesn't know who Uncle Ben is, and he says, "Is that the delicious rice packets?" That was hysterical. We even get to see some really cool classic Spider-Man movements, and it's all for comedy, where it's just like, Peter-Man, I'll call you Peter-Man from now on, vengeance is mine type thing. So I had a lot of fun reading that stuff. It was just a fun issue where we get to see a different side of Peter's responsibility, you know, a concept that we've seen in Spider-Man over and over again, but in a new, fresh tone. And then you get to see some other classic elements from Spider-Man, like some classic villains return. Kraven, what's that going to be about? That's going to be cool. And I love Otley's work. I really do. Like, look how beautiful that is. And the coloring is bright. That's something I missed in the other volume of Amazing Spider-Man. It was a little bit darker for me, but the colors are perfect. We also get to see a bit more Boomerang. They're building up his villain arc as well, and him being a bad roommate. So a lot of good goodies in this one. So I'm giving that 4 stars, and this has become quickly one of my favorite Amazing Spider-Man runs, and I hope it continues to be so. Alright, moving on to number 1, which is Crowded issue 2, man. This blew me away once again. Crowded issue 1 being one of my favorite issue 1s of the year, and then issue 2 was just a great follow-up. The dynamic between Charlie and Vita is electrifying and hysterical. So we get to see, and also one thing I really liked about this issue is that we get to see that Vita and Charlie have lives before this book starts, and that's just talented writing with Christopher, who's writing this book, where we feel these are real people, and that's what I want to feel with every comic. And we get to see Vita's ex-girlfriend, and that they had a cat together, and obviously Charlie had friends, which probably led her to having this bounty on her head. And then them also forming a friendship throughout this time and learning more about each other. Like that Vita likes going to the comic book store, and that's where she meets her hackers. It's just so much fun, but also it progresses the plot so naturally. It's just really great pacing, great character work, the artwork fits so well. Again, the comedy is there. It's just a really fun, dynamic book. So if you're not reading Crowded, get this one. That was my pick of the week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.